something spooky to do for you. I'm just trying to give you something. I'm just trying to give you something spooky to do for you. I'm just trying to give you something. never you. I just needed to work on me. Oh, but now I'm ready.
I'm ready
to love. Oh,
Boom. Hey guys, welcome to Look Back with 91. Listen, quick debrief. Sean will be joining me in a few minutes as well to debrief, but I really wanted to have a debrief because I saw the chat throughout the course of the conversation, and I know a lot of people were looking at Cam like he was mad, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I'll tell you why I enjoyed the conversation. I think for somebody who also is a dismissive, avoidant person, he is a perfect case study of what it can look like, right? And I thought it was so fascinating to hear him speak and so fascinating to see how he processed information, how he processed what he went through as a really great way to explain dismissive avoidance and how they maneuver. And I kind of spoke about this with the B. Simone and the Megan Ashley situation. I've been speaking about it throughout the last few months. Anybody who's a dismissive avoidant probably would have understood him very, very well. But there's a lot of things that he was saying that maybe sounded very alien to a lot of people. So I wanted to debrief it, break it down, and give some different perspectives on that. And I'll give a quick rundown of some of the things that I saw, and then I'm gonna get Sean on as well. So now a lot of people were concerned because when he mentioned money, job, and the status, and him being a legend, and him making money, and him, everything seemed to be about work. One thing you have to understand about a dismissive avoidant person is that they have an over focus on things like work, because the equation is very simple. Work equals success equals value, right? Work equals success equals value. And so when you're a dismissive avoidant, the reason why you're dismissive, and you're dismissive oftentimes of your own emotions and other people's, is because in your childhood, your emotions were not taken care of, your emotions were not made priority, and a way of survival was to turn off your emotions. And you look cold, and you always look more calculated, and you always look more conniving than everybody else because you seem to take emotions out of a situation. Let me give a point in case. When I did an interview of Dear Future Wifey, and I spoke about the fact that about my mom and my dad, and I said, at points, sometimes I feel like if they die, it is what it is. That is what it looks like because you have turned off from the emotional aspect of dealing with self and dealing with events. You compartmentalize things, right? And you stick to what you feel is a factual aspect of that event. But life is not just about facts. There are also feelings and emotions that play a role in decision making and in how we perceive certain things. You cannot take emotions out of a situation, right? So his the constant mention about money, job, and status really was him emphasizing his value. And I didn't get to go deeper because when we finally got there, we're already an hour and a half into the interview, and I was like, well, I can't go any longer, right? I've spent enough time trying to get to that point, but we finally got there. And what it was is really and truly, and I kind of spoke to him very briefly about it, is his sense of worth and his sense of value. And people that oftentimes are dismissive avoidant, their sense of worth and sense of value is tied into what they can produce. Do you know why? Because most of them were not valued for just who they were, right? So what happens is when you're not valued for who you are, you can't just be. You only know how to work. Right? And he's made work his identity because it gives him a sense of value. When he boasts about certain things about his money and, you know, I call it the humble brag, when you talk about how big your house is and what investments you've got and all those things, it's also understanding that it's giving him a sense of value in that sense, right? Now, just because I don't voice it doesn't mean that I don't have also a humble brag. Part of my humble brag is to be humble. You understand what I'm saying to you? I'm no better than another person just because he's saying it out loud. And that's why I really identified with him, because I was able to understand just because I don't say things and it sounds arrogant like, oh, I'm the best YouTuber or I'm the best at doing what I do. Don't think that in my head I don't think that. Oh, I do. You know what I mean? Well, I do. Yeah, outside, I don't say it on live, but in my head I'm like, I'm the best at what I do. There ain't nobody better than me. There ain't nobody better than me. They can't do better than me. So I may not say it out loud, but I do say it. So I have the same thoughts, hence why I can understand. He just voiced it out. Right? He was not afraid to say it out loud. And when you say it out loud, it sounds really wild, right? Because people are not used to that level of thought, or they're not used to someone saying such braggadocious things, which I totally understand. But It's because he's wrapped himself in his identity in being the money, the status, the job. And I was trying to get him to see that his value is beyond just him becoming this uber successful person. I wanted him to understand that at every point in his life, when he's in somebody's life, if they stick around, he provides value. Why? Because as human beings, we provide value. That is what we do. That's why people stick around you. That's why people want to be around you. That's why people want to spend time with you. That's why people are on this channel, because they sense a form of value. You provide value to people. But if you don't believe that, you're always working to provide value. And I can honestly tell you, that is how I think sometimes. A lot of times, I will try to do above and beyond to prove my value. I can't just exist. You know what I mean? I can't just exist. I get scared. And that's why I was understanding where he was coming from when he was mentioning the finance. And I was trying to get him to see that him feeling comfortable to be emotional will only come when he's successful, will be an erroneous way of looking at things. Because what you're really saying is you're afraid to show that side of you because you don't have the financial capacity to do so. You don't have that baseline for you to be able to rest upon. You will never get there because the goalposts will always move. The goalposts will consistently keep on moving. You need to be able to give that emotional output right now. If you can't give it right now, you won't give it when you're 20 million pounds in or you've got all your businesses working for you, right? Because something else will take your attention. And those businesses need some way of maintaining. You know, you might have a company. You might have passed that company to someone else. You're always going to have something that's going to be taking your attention and energy away. You're never going to be comfortable. And that's the lie we tell ourselves as a dismissive, avoidant people, that when I get here, I'll be able to, when I get there, I'll be able to, you get what I'm saying to you, right? You're always in a chasing mentality because you're always, your value is always being, your value is always away from you because you don't see your value in you, you see value in what you do. You understand what I'm saying to you? And that is also a problem because you find yourself in this position, what he's talking about, right? That you always have to do something to be valued. He then spoke about, obviously, the bamboo situation, which I really understood again. He was as a dismissive person, you don't want that person to be enmeshed into you. You don't want that person to cling to you. And you heard him say it, like he finds it attractive when a person's got their own thing going on. Don't cave into my world. And what he's really saying is, don't enmesh yourself into my world. Have your ish going on. Let me have my ish going on. Because so long as you have your ish going on, you're not going to make me the center of your world. The greatest fear of any dismissive avoidant is that person making you the center of your world because you're afraid of disappointing them and them disappointing you. You don't want to be reliant upon them and you don't want them to rely upon you. That's how dismissive people end up working, right? He can work with the employee relationship because it's based on a power dynamic of employee based on duty. It's not based on emotions. You come to work, you get paid. That is dutiful and that is obligatory. It is not emotional. If you come into work, you can't bring your emotions to work. You get paid based on what you do. Okay? All right? So that is easy to work with because there are a set of rules that he can obey and the other person must obey and they cannot change that or deviate from that. So it's easy to work in a work environment because, again, the system of chain here is that you work, you eat. So you work, you produce, you get paid. It's a very simple system that doesn't break. It's really easy. And then he spoke about the concept of time and energy and him not being able to give that to people. And you listen to when he said about Zadia trying to push his boundaries. That probably took him over the edge. I can't lie to you. Push me to the edge. Okay, no, sorry. But you know, like that probably pushed him to his edge. One thing dismissives do not like is being controlled. They hate it. Micromanagement and pushing people. For dismissive, you know what you have to do? Suggest. Never tell, suggest. With a dismissive person, do not tell, you only suggest. They hate people pushing them and they hate people pushing them when they're not ready. Don't do it, he'll fight back and he'll resist. And the resistance sometimes means separating from yourself and not talking to you again. Right? Because that person doesn't want to feel like a sense of control because they've been independent for so long. They haven't had a parent over them for so long because they've been independent for such a time in terms of managing their own emotions and their own feelings that how can you tell me? How can you tell me something when I've been managing my whole entire life for a very, very long time? Do you get what point I'm saying to you, right? So when someone tries to do that, they immediately become an EOP, an enemy of progress. Don't do it. They also despise people that want to be over reliant upon them because they've never had a chance to be over reliant on anybody, right? They've never had a chance to just rely on somebody and say, you know what, if you do, I'm gonna let you do it because it'll get done. No, they've never had that opportunity or that luxury. So they get frustrated when they see other people be too emotional and who break down very easy and who are too over reliant. It's like, get your ish together. Okay, get your ish together. How are you breaking? The world is still going. You crying and breaking down now makes no sense. The world is still going. It's still spinning. Your rent is still asking you for money. We don't when we're in that space, we don't look at things like that in that particular way. We don't have time for it because hey, at one point I was left to my own devices. I had to make it work. So you ain't got time to break down. You got to make it work. That's how they see it. No excuses. And when they start finding people like you were saying with Zadia, you know, Zadia and other girlfriends too, the moment they start requesting more time and more energy and more of the effort from him, and it starts to take away from the work, success, the value chain that I just explained, work, success, value, and you start to take away from that, they start to cancel you out slowly and sometimes quickly because you're now intruding on what gives them value. And when you start to do that, when you start to take up my time, that takes me away from my YouTube, and you start to do, and I know it too. I know the feeling. When someone's in my presence for too long, I'm a person that wants to be attentive to that person in that immediate moment. I want to give them all the energy and time and my mindset and everything. I'm all locked in. But when I'm all locked in, I don't have a very good sense of balance when it comes to working. I need you out my space completely to be able to focus solely on the work. When you're in my space, you're taking up energy. So I understood what he meant when he said like Zadia's coming over. It's not that she's bad, it's that she's taking up space. Mentally, physically, emotionally, she's taking up space. And because I want to be all inclusive in trying to provide that space for you where you get attention in that moment, I hear it, but now you're taking up my energy. I don't want you to take up that. You're now intruding, and I don't like that, right? And sometimes because you've got poor boundaries, it's very hard to be able to explain to somebody. It can be very hard to explain to somebody that you need your space, you need your time, because you're not very good at boundaries either. And then it comes across as very, very rude, right? Yes, kill switch. Absolute. He's got a kill switch. He definitely has. And so then my final thing is relationships become a distraction because they take away from the original goal, which is work, success, and value. So relationships that don't benefit the business will always become a distraction, and then they must be nuked because they do not aid me in my work, success, and value. And that is because there is no room in that space for emotions. It's only actions that bring results. I ain't got time to be emotive because emotive cannot be measured on a scale of being successful. Therefore, relationships now become a distraction. So after a while, I may love that girl, but after a while, I'm probably going to end up nuking her because really and truly, she's going to take away from my work, success, and value. Okay? And then when that happens, I see myself as a failure. In that particular respect, right? So, yes, a lot of people think like this, and it's not just men. There's a lot of women who do the exact same thing. Y'all just don't know, right? There's a lot of men and women, and when I see them, trust me, I've been out in the streets. I know. I met a lot of women, so there's a lot of women in the same space. There are men and women who have the same traits. A lot of people do it. So, yeah, that's my little quick debrief. I'm going to bring Sean on and we'll discuss a bit more because I think it'll be a good topic to discuss. Yes, Captain.
What's up, bro?
What's Gucci, man?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good discussion. You know, it definitely it took you a little while to kind of let him get comfortable to kind of open up and have a conversation about emotions, feelings, his thoughts on the relationship. But I know we were having some behind the scenes chat with, some of the other ladies from the panel and, just trying to, understand. And I think, if you take it at surface value, you could easily misunderstand some of the things that he's saying. So to me, it was very clear how he kind of showed up very similar to what we saw on TV. It was just more of an expanded conversation, but very similar. He kind of says it like it is. I think,
Yeah.
when he says something, you just got to take him for what it is
What
and
it
don't
is.
try to look any further into it, because I think if you read a little bit further past what he's saying, then you might get tangled into thinking that you're going to get more than he's going to give, and he's not. I'm not saying, for me, and nothing personal against him. I think he was, he really came to the conversation open. I like how when you push back at him during the course of the interview, when you were asking him questions and he kept talking about work, 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 and then he went down the path of explaining like assets and real estate. And you kind of just told him like, hey, you went into a whole lecture when I was just trying to ask you a question about emotions and feelings. And he took it well. So for me, when you see somebody who takes it well, that means the person is, he's a balanced person. He's not like,
Yeah.
just totally shut off. He is open to hearing things, and he took some time to hear and digest your feedback. He asked you some questions. So is this kind of what you're looking for? But his baseline is to talk about work, which is his safe space. Uh,
Yes.
and I think, I'm nobody's therapist, counselor, psychiatrist, or anything of that nature. But, I know people and I've studied human behavior. And also just in managing people, you get to understand people's defaults. And his default is to go into what he does well. And I think that is
Yeah.
his safe space, because he doesn't do emotions well. He doesn't do feelings well. And when he described those times when Zadia tried to do more of the feeling and emotional work with him, he kind of repelled against it. Even
Yeah.
when he said like she just wanted more compliments about her looks, and he just rejected that. It doesn't mean that attractiveness is not important to him. It's just not a space he's comfortable in, or he likes dealing in that space. He likes dealing in the tangible, the things that where he feels like, if I work this hard, then I'm going to get this output out, right? I can lose money, but if I know I just find another way, I work a little bit harder, I can get that money back. Humans and people and feelings are very different. And I think, something that, I had to work on my like evolution of relationships and people and feelings is understanding that you have to put yourself out there to be vulnerable. And yeah, you're not going to know what you get until you risk, you put a little bit of risk into that, and you're likely to get hurt. And I think he struggles to find that balance, or
Balance.
he needs to see like there's enough value. It has to make sense for him. Like, this person has enough value. I think I can predict what the outcome is, and then I'm kind of going to put myself out there. But it just doesn't work that way because the person wants to see something from you too before you get to see all of them. So it's kind of like, yes, he was bending on the time, but he also needs to bend on vulnerability, and
Yes.
transparency. And I think that was where I heard him and saw him struggling in that, to be vulnerable and transparent with Zadia during the process.
Man, it's such a key thing, because I think it can easily, like you said, it can easily be misread, right? When I'm looking at him, and I even said it, a couple of times on the interview, me and him are very similar. The audience doesn't see it that way because they see, quote unquote, a more polished aspect of me, because I'm explaining how maybe I think, right? But the reality is, me and him are very similar. Very similar. Like there's a lot more than people really realize, because I'm very, like you said, his baseline is work. So is mine. My baseline is relationships. If anybody is to tell you, like, my issue is that I can talk about relationships for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. It's a very safe baseline. I do it very well, and that's a natural go-to, because again, that's also where we have value. This is where people hold value for us, is in doing that and talking about relationships. People praise you, people appreciate you, people love you in that space. And so because you haven't been loved in a space of just being valued for being a person, you found your space where you're valued and you're appreciated. His employers will show him appreciation. People that do the business with him will show him appreciation. The network that he's built will show appreciation in that space. So work becomes this really comfortable space that he exists in, because when he's doing something, he gets a result. But emotions and feelings aren't necessarily put in and get back out, right? It's not such a simple equation as such, right? Or and so there's a complication behind it. So it's easy to fall into that space where you are. It's easy to fall in that space where, as a person, you are hyper focused on that particular aspect, right? And I totally understood where he was coming from as well, And nobody said he's ready. No, I've never said he was ready. So yeah, D, you're right. I'm not ready, but I've told you that how many times? Like, that's the whole point. No one's saying he's ready. I think that's where people are trying to jump ahead. It's like, nobody's saying he's ready. He's not ready. We can see that he's not ready, right? We're merely just kind of understanding where he's coming from and saying, I'm trying to ask a bit more empathy for him in his aspect, because he's not a bad guy. He's just somebody who is locked into a way of thinking, you know what I mean? And needs a little bit more input.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the ladies, they just have a hard time. And that's why when you said it, I was like, oh, should we do a live? Should we talk about it? Do I just want to sit in and listen? But like, the more we had the behind the scenes conversation, the more of value I think it is to have, because it is nuanced. And again, I don't think, I think Seaway made this point when we were talking about some other thing about people are nuanced, right? So it's not like all people are good and all people, somebody has to be good and somebody has to be bad. Like, I think it's not that simple. And especially with somebody like Cam, he has lots of value. And you saw how he lit up when you told him, no, bro, you have value. There's more to you than just the things that you have to work. He lit up, and that made him feel good, because that's what somebody like him would need. He still has to do work on his own. And if you heard him, he acknowledged that. He said, even with another thing that I picked on, and I have a friend that's like this too, a really close friend, when it comes to phone calls, he said, like, that was one of the things. He was like, well, Zadi, if you're thinking about me, call me, right? I'm just not a phone person. Listen, I have a friend like that, and that's just how they are. We've had the conversations, and they've gotten better at it, but it is selfish, because you're not really thinking about the person on the other end, but it's not so much intentional. It's just how that person thinks about it. And it's just the people in their lives explaining and sharing with them enough to make them, help them understand, hey, listen, we need some of that energy. We need to know that that it's a reciprocal thing, and I'm not bugging you to call you. Or that there's times when you think about me that you can pick up the phone and call too. So, and he says he's been told that by people in his close in his life. So it's something he's worked on, and is, strengthening a bond with his mom and talking to her more. And this is a real world. There are people running around the world like this. It doesn't make them bad people. It just makes them, that's an opportunity for them. Sometimes people just run around doing things in their zone. And Cam struck me as somebody who's very compartmentalized. Even when he talked about his previous relationship, very compartmentalized. And as soon as it didn't fall in line, he liked the woman, but as soon as it didn't fall within his framework or didn't line up with the way he saw things going, that's where the dismissive part comes in, because it's easier for him to cut ties with that relationship than consider making an adjustment to his behavior when he doesn't know what the outcome is really going to be.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think one of the craziest things is about the situation also is, I think when you're listening to him, it's very hard. Like, you hear that the tangents that he can go on to, and I think I really empathize with him, because I know that what a lot of times people are seeing with someone like Cam is that there is nobody to translate what's being said. So, like, what he's saying, yes, we're hearing it, but what's the translation? So oftentimes when people hear me speak, they're hearing me translate what's going on. So it looks like I'm in a better position. I'm not. I'm just able to translate what's going on here to you. That doesn't stop me from doing the madness after. It doesn't stop me from not having the same thoughts and feelings he's having. It doesn't stop me from, like, the calling situation. I'm as bad as him. Listen, I don't be calling people. I'll be honest with you. I just don't be calling people Even my best friend, you know, she's learned how to work with it. You know what I mean? Like, I call you when I need you, you call me when you need me, you know what I mean, etc., etc. Because, and that's a level of selfishness. That's a level of detachment that we have, right? And so what we can call it is there's selfishness there. The avoidant dismissive person ends up becoming selfish because he doesn't have balance. And really and truly, what's happening is he's overwhelmed. So you heard what he said about his mum. He said, look, when I do call my mum, it's gonna be a 3 or 4 hour conversation. He's a person that's gonna think about from A to Z. He doesn't think about the middle. He only thinks about A to Z. How do I start and what's the end? And how we think is that it's a 3 hour, 4 hour conversation. I'd rather just not get into it. When I have time for the 3 to 4 hour conversation, I'll get into it. But I don't have time for the 3 or 4 hour conversation. So he just doesn't do it. And the reason why is because we're bad at boundaries. So when it gets into the conversation, you know your time is running. To be fair, he actually gave me so much grace. I told him 2 hours, went for 3. He had to go, right? And I said, I apologize, bro. You know what? I'm bad at boundaries too. So you met your match, right? So it's like, you know, in that space, you're bad at telling somebody, listen, hey, because you feel bad. And that's the reality. You feel bad about saying to somebody, hey, you know what? It's been an hour talking. I've actually got to go back. I've actually got to go home. Because you start thinking about how you're not serving. Remember what he started off with? He said, I want to help people. And that is the emphasis. So when he's starting to call his mum, whatever, and it gets to an hour, maybe he wants to get off. But he's afraid of getting off because he doesn't want to hurt their feelings. Because remember, his feelings have not been serviced. So he's trying to play that role that he never got played for. So when you start realizing that you're going to have to be in a 3 or 4 hour conversation, I don't have time. I've got other priorities to do that are going to make me valuable. So let me go and do those things that are tangible and I can measure. I can't measure a 3 or 4 hour conversation that don't bring money and doesn't bring status and doesn't bring wealth and doesn't bring those things. At the end of the day, I can't present that to somebody because they're not tangible, but they are also very much important as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, you comparing yourself to him doesn't mean you guys are mirror images of each other.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think the other part that people are missing is the Kojo that shows up in front of you. And, you know, listen, I have the benefit of knowing you, right? Outside of the YouTube space, we know each other. You know me, I know you. You've seen my flaws, you know, and I've seen yours. Yeah, if Kojo is at work, so you are seeing him at work. If we saw Cam at work, we would see a different version of him and look at him through that lens. Because that is his space. That's the space he operates in. That's the space where he is proficient. So you get a different version of him. Versus here, you're seeing him through the lens of a reality show and then also being interviewed on YouTube and talking about a variety of things, which is not what his safe space is. And again, people may see red flags. Yeah, what you're seeing is somebody who's not ready for a relationship. Again, I just think, you know, and this is not everybody in the comments, but some of the people. And I just want to, you know, this expanded conversation is important because you get to see different people and how they operate so that you can understand what your bandwidth is, because it might not be for you. And then just getting to understand and humanize people, because I think sometimes, especially on reality TV, we want to immediately, bam, they're the villain, they're the bad guy, he robbed her of an experience, he doesn't want her, he wasted her time. No. And if you even hear how he explained, and that's why he wanted to make sure, yes, does he want to come off like he's a bad person? No, most people don't. But I think when you hear these examples, if Zadia continued a relationship with him, they continue to talk, that shows that, you know, there were good times. He wasn't just, you know, wasting her time per se. It just didn't work out. And this happens. And I think, just like he said, this was a good example for relationships. Yeah, it is, because sometimes it just doesn't work out. And there's things that we can reflect back on and say, hey, maybe if I would have paid closer attention here, I could have saw where I probably should have got off the train earlier, right? Or for him, there's times when he could have just probably been crystal clear with her and said, hey, listen, I see where this is going. I'm not really ready for a relationship. Then, you know, I think we should probably stop here before we get ahead of ourselves. You know, but it takes two people. It does. It takes two people, because the part of him that is still a good person and a good guy, the woman on the receiving end of that can't get wrapped up in that. And that's that's the tough part that we kind of saw play out.
Yeah, and I think if he's on, I think if he really is honest about himself, he was never convinced. I don't think he was ever convinced about Saudi, if I'm honest with you, because he met her 5 years ago. He weren't trying to go nowhere again, but he decided to try and see how it would go, right? And he could have been more. He could have been more direct about not wanting to date her. But the reality of the situation is, he enjoyed the fact that she was willing to give up her time. Yeah, and that's the honest reality. Like, he's willing to play that game, and he's a bit of a game player because when you become a dismissive avoidant, this is what ends up happening. People get intrigued by your mystery and your ability to be evasive. And so when that person wants to play that game, you're both culpable, right? It's not just, oh, he's a bad boy player. No, we're both culpable because I really could have told you no, but I don't want to tell you no, and I can only waste the time that you're willing to give me, right? So in that space, he becomes evasive. She keeps chasing. He gonna enjoy wasting your time, right? And you're gonna enjoy wasting your time because your prize is capturing the trophy at the end. But in reality, both parties have lied to themselves in reality, or I should say maybe one party is more lied to themselves than the other. The other party knows he's lying, but he in a different kind of capacity, I guess. But you weren't that you weren't going there. So I think, yes, he's not. I don't think he's ready for a relationship. I'm honest with you. I don't think he's ready for a relationship. I don't think he should be in one. I think he should be focusing on himself and developing the connection between himself and his emotional self and working on that aspect so that he can start to see how to merge and balance relationships alongside his work. And when he does, he'll be an amazing person. But if until then, he's going to cause more issues if he keeps on dating. And if he's not just honest about that fact, he just wants to mess around. And even that comes with consequences because people want to get close to you because you're evasive. So, that's a story in itself.
Yeah, it's a tricky game. And I think, the one thing that he does need to do, and I know he talked a lot about manifestation and meditation, and all those things are great. But I do think he needs to do the work, with a coach, counselor, therapist to kind of talk through, his view of relationships, how his expectations on how relationships should work, and then just being able to effectively communicate what he wants and then being intentional, because I think that he kind of had those areas a little bit gray when he was talking about his relationship history. It was a sore topic for him because even he was even honest when he got pressed with that question. He didn't want to answer it, and then his answer was something that happened with his mom, a bad experience that she had.
Mm-hmm.
So he took on the trauma from his mom, and her experience and related it to his own, based on what she shared with him. And I think sometimes parents unknowingly transfer trauma onto us. And I think that it caused him to go more into this avoidant space. And I know that with avoidant people, and I've learned in managing them, you have to give them space and you have to give them room, and they'll flourish in that environment and actually work with you. And I think that's the kind of person he would need anyway, whether what part of his journey he's going to be on and healing and what have you. He's going to need somebody that gives him space, because for me, as soon as he's told her to date other people, that was it. And I know I'm not the only person that said it, but that for me, and some people was like, oh, well, no, that was the sign. You are pushing me too far, and I don't see enough value in this situation to fight and change my ways enough. And now I just want you to continue to do what you have to do so that you don't come back later and say you missed out on something. So that was probably a very clear sign. Now, if we're paying attention to that, there's really nothing else to talk about after that. I think the right move would to just be back all the way out. And if he still wanted her, then he would have come back and, similar to kind of what a Maurice did, and, court her and say, hey, listen, maybe I made a misjudgment, or, blah, 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 whatever it was. But to continue to pivot, like, that's not the point when I think Zadia should have ended. I think that's the time when she should have backed all the way off, and then gave him some space and distance to see kind of like where his feelings really sat with her. And that's just my little thought process about that.
I was gonna, yeah. I personally think maybe that's I think a fair assessment is that he he needs to now be aware that I think it's now if you know what you're doing, then you're good, isn't it? I think that's what now needs coming. It's now a bit more self-awareness of what's happening, so you know what you're doing. Because at least if you know what you're doing and you do it, that's up to you. You know what I mean? That's your business. But if you don't know what you're doing and you're doing it, you're likely to probably repeat that in a situation or relationship. And I was like, well, what's going on? You know what I mean? So I think just listening to him speaking that, I was like, okay, great, okay, cool. At least I think I love the fact that he's at least receptive, because that means that you're willing to listen, and more than likely, it might not be today, it might be tomorrow, as we said the other time. It might not be today that you listen, but it might be tomorrow that you listen. You're gonna get it, right? And that for me is always a great indication. So I think he just needs to take time and process this process, what happened in it, and just sit with himself. Because when he then mentioned, and it's a kind of conversation where if we had 6 hours, would get so much deeper, right? You need time with Cam, which is why I didn't want to pressure him. I know people wanted me to I think some people who are new on the channel, they want you to kind of press somebody. I don't think you're really paying attention. If you press him, he's not going to play that game with you. The moment he feels you pressing, at points you saw him trying to flip it onto me, because he's a person that wants to assess weaknesses and wants to have control. So I let you have control. I don't want you to feel like I'm in control. If you want to have control, have control. You do what you want to do. I want to get the information out of you. If that means playing the rabbit in this situation, you got the gun, I'm gonna let you have it, because I want to get the information out of you to help and be able to help you see what's going on. And so I think listening to him, it was even when he was going to deeper about the situation with the mom and the previous relationship that was happening. I was like, whoa, well, we didn't even know about this stuff. You didn't express all that. That's a big thing. If your mom tells that stuff when you're very young about how don't tell any information, that's also going to lean more into that not opening yourself up and being vulnerable again, because you now have live experiences of your parents saying this don't work. You know what I mean? And it's probably a scary story too. I got hurt, I got this, I got abused, I got this. Yeah, and you're close to your mom, you probably don't want to do anything different to what your mom said. You know what I mean? So all of those play a big role in the situation as well. Shout out to Miss View for the super chat as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson for him. And I think I just think that he needs to kind of like look back and then kind of have that accountability, self-assessment with himself, and kind of say, hey, listen, I may have felt that I was honest, or I may have felt that I was clear with Zadia about where we were. But seeing what I saw and seeing how things played out, what's something I would do different? You know what I mean? Like, what would I do different? What was a key takeaway for me? What are some things I'm actively working on? Because that's gonna really make him ready for a relationship. I think and this is the other thing, right? We talk about the love languages. He's so focused on what makes him feel good and feel valuable, and then he takes that and says, this is what I want to be in a relationship. But that's not all you need to be in a relationship. Those are the things that make you fully actualize and feel good about yourself. But you have to now take into consideration, what does the person that you're with want, right? And you can't say, oh, I'm going to find somebody that's just like you, because they're just like you, they're still going to need different things from you. So I think that's, again, where that selfishness, you have to kind of move away from that. And you get so used to living on your own for so long, and he's lived on his own and kind of done things his own way and not really had a lot of long-term solid relationships, that he just kind of feels like he's just going to find a woman that's going to fit in his framework and it's going to work. It's not what's going to happen. You're going to have to find out what makes her happy, what is important to her, and ensure that you're doing those things that are intentional, and set up to make her happy.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I said, it's all about balance. And there's like I said, there's a level of selfishness because you're used to being on your own, and used to doing things on your own. Even like even myself coming into Ghana after 2 months. I know a lot of people are around and about Ghana, but to be honest, I've enjoyed but not enjoyed the trip. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of solo stuff. And part of being a dismissive avoidant is that whilst you love your space, you also do get a rise out of being amongst other people, right? And obviously the previous holidays I've been with you, Sean, I think the last 2 holidays we was in Houston and we was in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying to you, right? We was a group. So, and I didn't put out the video, but I did a video when we was in DC at the what's it, Alexandreville, was it? Or where we were?
Alexandria?
Yeah, Alexandria. When you guys left, I did a video and I said, yo, like, I really appreciate the time I spent with the guys. And I felt, I felt some type of way because it's like, being in a space with you guys and having a holiday with, and not just doing my own thing, but actually having to accommodate people and be in their space and everything was really interesting for me. But actually, I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? For once in my life, I wasn't thinking about going off and trying to do my own thing. I actually really enjoyed being around you guys and stuff. Right? The same thing again when we was in Houston and when you guys left eventually. It was a dampener. So it's a growth thing, right? Because you start to realize you can't do everything on your own, right? And it's tough to keep doing things on your own, And so it's whilst you can, you don't want to have to be in that position. And yes, you're still going to have aspects of you that want to do individual things, which I think you should, but you have to be open and ready to open yourself up to others as well, which is a give and take, which can be very difficult at points in time sometimes because you're used to being a soloist and looking out for yourself because no one else has looked out for you. And you've got to almost change your mindset to think that other people will look out for you, which is really hard. It's really hard because the evidence doesn't suggest that from your past, going forward. So yes, it's a difficult task to do.
That's such a good point. And I think this year that we spent traveling versus last year, we're very different. And we have very different experiences. So I think that's such a good point. And I think we've actually, just the core group of us and, in our friendships, we've all gotten significantly closer because even DC, the first part of that, the first couple of days, you guys had joined me, Seaway and yourselves, on my family reunion. Right. So that was like, it wasn't even like we were doing a tour, we were doing anything like that. And then we kind of just did our own thing in addition to that. But you spent a lot of time with my family. Mm-hmm. Funny story, your room was right next to my mom's. So I was like, oh no, I need to move Kojo's room.
If you don't hear nothing.
I need to move Kojo's room. But thank God they were all suites and everything. There was no issues. But But yeah, no, we really built the family. And I think when we fast forward to Jamaica, there weren't any moments where I had to even think, oh, well, where's Kojo? Where's Kojo? Because any other trip, I just knew you could be gone. I could look there and you were gone the next second. And then sometimes the girls would be like, oh my God, where's Kojo? I'm like, just let him be. He's okay. Just let him fly and be free and do whatever the heck he wants to do. Don't stress him out. But Jamaica, we knew where you were pretty much every moment. You would check in. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. You spent a whole day, which is unheard of, doing excursions with Jay. I was like, whoa. You would have never done that. A whole 8, 9, 10 hours? Never. Never. To be locked in one place and not being able to move freely? Mm-mm. I was like, I didn't even go.
And like I said, it's a growth thing, bro. It's a growth thing because it's a growth thing and a trust thing. You know what I mean? It's a genuine trust thing. Because I even mentioned that and I'm sure the first group of OGs will probably even tell you if they ever tell you about their experience with me. It was a very different experience to what we have because I kept myself very separate. It's like, this is business, this is work. We can chill and talk for 4 hours and catch jokes, but it doesn't need to go any further than that. You know what I mean? Don't make it personal. Don't need to be messaging me after. I don't need to message you after. I just keep it strictly business. So it's a very different environment to what we have. Whereas it almost felt like I was on here and I kept everybody here. Whereas like with us, it's like, no. I need to be the same level. We're all a team. We're all part of the group. We're all part of the family. It's a different approach, but it takes a level of trust to want to put yourself, because you have to be open to, and that's taking some time to get to that place. It's a gradual work that has to be done, and you have to be aware that it's actually happening to you, to be able to make that change as well, because it's not an easy change to make. But yeah, he needs to be open to that, and maybe if he finds his crew and his people, then he'll see that, he'll see that.
And it takes time, you know what I mean? And it's not, because there were some, even if you think about some people that were here in the beginning that kind of fell off, anybody that tried to like push themselves on you overtly and tried to say, this is what you need to do. And maybe they, some folks were good intentioned and meant well, but it's not going to work. And I know sometimes people will when we do the core four, right? And it'll just be the four of us and we'll do a panel. Or right now it happens to just be you and me. And then some people will come in and be like, where's this one? Where's that one? You have to understand, in any group, you always are going to have people that connect and get along a little bit more than others. And it's not a personal thing. It's just a thing. And it's not to slight any one particular person, but sometimes, like there's sometimes when it's just going to be Kojo and I. Sometimes Kojo can do something where it's him and Seaway. A lot of times it's gonna be Kojo and Jay. You think I'm sitting back and like, oh my God, why am I not? No, it's fine, and I think that is okay. And I think sometimes as friends, and even in working relationships, people want to own people's time. And that's one thing that I did like that he said, because that is a good value to have, where he says, I don't feel like I own anybody. And to me, that's what made me kind of walk away from saying, oh, this guy has, like some people were saying, oh, I get bad vibes. No, if somebody can own it and say, like, I realize I don't possess people, that's somebody who has some level of awareness and also, understands that ability of, that people need their space to breathe. So it's not even just like him saying, this is what I need, but he's also willing to extend that to somebody else. Because as guys, we can definitely be very possessive, especially when it comes to the women in our lives. And I think, yes, he is selfish, but he's not possessive. So, and I think possessiveness brings out other bad qualities. That I think that I don't see him having. And I think that he is not going to, look to manipulate someone in that way. People are going to get hurt. I'm not going to say they're not going to get hurt messing around with him. You definitely will. But I think that ability to not possess people is a good trait. That's what I'm trying to get onto.
No, I mean, I definitely get that as well. I think, I think the situation, it's, I think when listening to him, I didn't get any necessarily bad vibes. Like, what I got from someone is, yes, he's a little bit selfish. He does his own time, and he's unable to share it, and if he really wants a relationship, then he's going to need to learn how to do that. I didn't necessarily hear anything that was like, oh my God, it's a little bit crazy. I think, and again, that's what I said, dismissive avoidance always do look a little bit some way to people, especially when it's amongst men, because as man, we show any kind of deviance of behavior, we're already kind of labeled, which I get it, because people have had bad experiences with men, and there's quite a lot of them experiences, so I do understand. But yeah, I think it's just a case he get himself into therapy. As Vern said, he should get himself into therapy, and start working on some of those things, and he'll start to realize some of the changes that will start happening straight away, or at least have more conversations with people that will make him change his point of view about being the way he is,
100%. And, just kind of tilting his perspective on how he expects a relationship to run. And I think what you encouraged him to do as well is just understanding that his value is more. It's more than just the things that he does that generate money, or that, make people feel good in that way. Because he also lit up when he was talking about taking the girls out, taking the ladies out on the town, and showing them a good time, and showing them the city. And Vern, spoke highly of him about that as well. So I
Yep.
think those are things that are good. He should continue to do those things, but that's not the only place that he can be valuable. It
Love
is
that.
other than
It's a
that.
bar.
It is other than just taking them around in his nice car. Hey, shout out to BMWs. I have one too. I love it. But that, I don't think, like, there's nothing wrong with having nice things, and I think he should continue to do that. He works hard. You should have them, but you don't put your value in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't find like, oh, I think I'm valuable because I have a nice car and I drive people around in it. No, that's not what I like it. It's a nice car. It's fast, and I like to drive fast sometimes. And that's okay. It's something I enjoy. As long as I do it safely, then I'm good. Um, but I think, like, he needs to expand his view and then detach from some of those things that like were passed down to him, like the stuff that his mom shared. He's got to find a way to detach from that. And you do need to be vulnerable. You do need to talk about your previous relationships, and be okay with talking about them, and not feel like they're going to be weaponized. And if they are, then that means that that person either needs to be educated, or you need to just, not be around them.
Yeah, and I think that's the key message, really, isn't it? From it is that there is value in you being you, and it's something I've been speaking about actually last week or so. Do you like or do you love people? You know what I mean? And that we should do both. We should like the people and love them, right? Because when you're in a relationship with somebody, you want to like the qualities that they have, and you want them to love what they do. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes you can get caught up in the love what people do and not the like of the actual being of the person. And that's what I want him and other people to take away, and including myself. You can be loved for who you are. There are people that love you for who you are. You meet people in this world who would just say, I don't know what it is about you, I just like you, right? There's value in who you actually are, not just what you do. And I think that's a really key message that you just kind of harped on, Sean. That's really important, is that message of being loved, liked for who you are is so essential, because it stops people from having to be in a place of people pleasing and trying to put up these facades and trying to overwork in order to prove that they're valuable to someone or something. And I think that is important for most people. Have people around you that value you for you. You know. Final sentiments, Sean?
Yeah, no, I think that I think just one thing to just for folks to be aware of, that they when um they encounter someone like him, is just take them for what they say, because Cam definitely considers himself a truth speaker. I think, for the most part, you're the same in that, where you're going to be very honest with somebody. So, take them for what they say, uh, and don't try to change it up. And I think for him, we talked a lot about it, is understanding relationships, understanding that, it's there is a level of predictability. There's not a level of predictability, and it's not going to be a formula. But you have to do the work and put in the work with the right person. And sometimes also for him, I think the other thing is to just stand firm and understand that, although you may think you're being honest, just when you think you're being honest, give yourself room for being even more honest, being fully transparent, and just not give those mixed messages. And guys, we know how not to give a mixed message. We know how to be straightforward. And sometimes it's the fear of that initial hurt, but it's better that you hurt initially than drag someone's hurt out a little bit longer than you need to.
Appreciate that, Sean. Yeah, listen, audience, it's been a good little debrief. I think it's been good to just kind of chop it up after, just to kind of discuss it. Obviously, tomorrow we've got Don as well. So he's going to be on from 5 to 7. So we'll have a conversation about him as well, I'm sure. and discuss some of the issues there. I'll try and reach out to Kirsten. I've got the details for Kirsten now, so I'll reach out to Kirsten, Mizell, and Maurice and try and get the fellas in. I'll reach out to Ash. I think she will do it as well. So we'll try and get more people on and discussing so that you guys can get the insights of what happened on this season, because it's a bit of a mayhem. But yeah, audience, listen, it's late for you guys now. It's probably like, what, 3 o'clock in the morning. You lot are finally coming into my side of how it feels, you know? You see that 3 o'clock in the morning and you hear the caw. That's what I'm hearing right now. But listen, thank you so much as well. We appreciate you. What I would say is, maybe we can discuss next time. Cam Dunn said he saw Vern, and I was like, you gonna let that slip? Bro, what did you think about it real quick before we go? I was like, whoa.
Listen, I haven't been blocked. I'm not trying to be blocked by Vern. So, yo, that to me, and he touched on it. He said he was trying to holler at Vern a little bit, and Vern told him, you know,
you're a little
young for the liking, you know? But he looked like he wanted that challenge, but Vern sussed him out and was like, yeah, no. Going away
you're
from
young
me.
for me.
Yes.
Yeah. I need grown man vibes. Your money long, but you still need to be grown.
Exactly. Yeah, when he said, I was a little shocked though. I was like, threw me
for a loop.
Yeah.
I was like, yo. I was like, let me leave that Vern thing alone before someone explodes out here. You get me?
Yeah, Vern be drunk. Listen, Vern said she ain't never had no problem, you know? She said she ain't never had no problem. So proves that point.
She definitely ain't. She's a beautiful woman, so I don't expect nothing else.
Yes.
So yeah. But yeah, all right, audience, thank you so much. Much appreciation. We'll see you again very, very soon tomorrow night. Much love, much appreciation. Bye-bye.